A tow truck's steel chains rattled across the pavement as a worn-out pickup was lifted into the air, and a little girl standing beside it clutched her father's hand so tightly that her tiny fingers turned white. Across the corporate parking lot, a powerful CEO watched without the slightest hint of sympathy, convinced she had just taught another careless stranger a lesson about rules. She had no idea that within minutes, the most influential people in her company would abandon the boardroom, rush outside in panic, and desperately beg the quiet single father to say just one word. Sometimes the greatest power doesn't belong to the richest person in the room. Sometimes it belongs to the one person who refuses to use it. Before this incredible journey begins, if you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still matter in today's world, please take a moment to like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to our channel. Every act of support helps our community continue sharing stories that remind us how compassion can change lives. Graham Mercer had never imagined that raising his 8-year-old daughter alone would become both the hardest and the most beautiful responsibility of his life. 5 years earlier, he had buried his wife after a sudden illness that left behind more questions than answers. Since then, every sunrise belonged to work, every afternoon belonged to his daughter Nora, and every evening belonged to homework, laundry, simple dinners, and bedtime stories. His old blue pickup had carried everything that mattered to him, from construction tools to birthday presents, from groceries to camping supplies, and countless memories of better days. It rattled, squeaked, and occasionally refused to start on cold mornings, but Graham treated it like another member of the family because replacing it simply wasn't possible. That bright Tuesday morning began with unexpected hope. Graham had been invited to deliver custom wooden conference furniture to Halcyon Dynamics, one of the largest technology companies in the state. Months earlier, his tiny woodworking business had submitted handcrafted samples after a designer recommended his craftsmanship. The invitation to the headquarters felt like the opportunity that might finally secure enough income to give Nora the stable future she deserved. The company's headquarters stood like a monument of polished glass, expensive landscaping, and modern architecture. Luxury vehicles filled the executive parking spaces while employees hurried across spotless walkways carrying tablets and coffee cups. Graham parked his aging truck beside the loading area after a security employee briefly waved him toward what appeared to be a temporary unloading space. He carefully unloaded several beautifully crafted oak display panels before noticing Nora staring at the enormous fountain with wide eyes. She smiled in a way only children can, seeing magic where adults often saw concrete. Graham promised they would leave as soon as he finished checking in. They had planned to celebrate afterward with ice cream because every important delivery deserved a small celebration. Inside the building, however, confusion quickly replaced excitement. The receptionist couldn't locate the appointment. Another employee insisted the meeting had been moved upstairs. Someone else asked Graham to wait while they contacted purchasing. Every minute stretched longer than the last. Outside, the loading zone supervisor noticed the old pickup still parked near the entrance. Rather than asking questions, he immediately contacted parking enforcement. The situation reached the attention of CEO Victoria Ellsworth, a brilliant executive celebrated for transforming struggling businesses into billion-dollar corporations. Investors admired her discipline. Business magazines praised her decisiveness. Employees respected her intelligence but feared her perfectionism. Rules, efficiency, and appearances defined everything she believed leadership should represent. Looking through the lobby windows, Victoria noticed the weathered pickup sitting near the entrance. She frowned. Without asking who owned it or why it was there, she instructed facilities management to have it removed immediately. She believed exceptions encouraged carelessness, and carelessness weakened organizations. Minutes later, Graham stepped outside just as the tow truck operator tightened the final chain. Nora's smile disappeared instantly. The little girl ran toward the truck, tears streaming down her face. Everything they owned for work was inside. The handcrafted furniture samples. The family's emergency savings hidden beneath the driver's seat. Nora's backpack. Her late mother's old photograph that Graham always carried wherever he traveled. Graham didn't shout. He didn't threaten anyone. He simply asked whether there had been some misunderstanding. Victoria walked toward him surrounded by assistants. She calmly explained that unauthorized vehicles were removed without exception because policies existed for everyone. Graham quietly explained that security had directed him there and that he had only been inside trying to locate the purchasing department. Victoria remained unmoved. Rules were rules. She turned away before noticing Nora wiping away tears while hugging the truck's dusty front bumper. At that exact moment, several directors rushed out of the building looking unusually anxious. The chairman of Halcyon Dynamics, Roland Whitaker, had just arrived after receiving an unexpected message from the procurement department. They had finally identified Graham Mercer. Silence swept across the entrance. Roland's face changed the moment he saw the pickup hanging from the tow truck. Then he saw Graham. His expression became one of complete disbelief. Years earlier, before Halcyon Dynamics became internationally successful, Roland had owned a struggling manufacturing company drowning in debt. Banks had refused additional loans. Investors disappeared. Suppliers demanded payment. One small workshop owner had agreed to continue building custom prototypes without asking for immediate payment. That workshop belonged to Graham. Instead of demanding money, Graham simply believed that honest people deserved another chance. Those prototypes eventually secured the contract that saved Roland's company. Without Graham's quiet act of faith years before, Halcyon Dynamics would never have existed. Roland hurried toward Graham with genuine emotion. Every executive standing nearby froze. The CEO herself looked confused as the chairman embraced the ordinary-looking carpenter she had dismissed only moments earlier. Even more shocking was what followed. Roland immediately ordered the tow truck to stop. Legal advisors, board members, and senior executives gathered around within minutes. Victoria slowly realized she had never bothered to read Graham's appointment file. The company hadn't invited just another supplier. The board planned to award Graham an exclusive multi-year contract worth millions because every competing manufacturer had failed to match the craftsmanship of his furniture. The samples Graham carried represented the future design identity of every executive office the company planned to build. Yet no one cared about the contract first. Roland knelt beside Nora instead. He apologized to the frightened little girl for what she had experienced. Employees watched in stunned silence. Some lowered their heads. Others quietly wiped away tears after learning why the old truck mattered so much. Victoria stood completely still. For the first time in many years, success, authority, and confidence failed to protect her from the uncomfortable truth. She had judged a father by the age of his truck. She had assumed worn paint meant irresponsibility. She had believed appearances revealed character. Everything she believed about leadership suddenly felt painfully incomplete. The board invited Graham upstairs. He politely declined. He wasn't angry. He simply wanted his daughter to feel safe again before discussing business. That simple answer affected everyone more deeply than any speech could have. Instead of protecting a contract worth millions, Graham protected the heart of one frightened child. Roland quietly instructed the cafeteria to prepare lunch for Graham and Nora while the truck was carefully lowered back onto the pavement. Mechanics volunteered to inspect the aging vehicle free of charge after discovering worn brakes and several dangerous mechanical issues. One employee arranged for new tires. Another anonymously replaced damaged tools. Someone else placed fresh art supplies inside Nora's backpack after learning she loved drawing. No one asked for recognition. Kindness spread through the building almost like a chain reaction. Victoria spent the afternoon reviewing years of company policies. She noticed how often efficiency had quietly replaced empathy. Numbers had become more important than people. Procedures had become more valuable than understanding. She realized leadership wasn't measured by how perfectly rules were enforced but by how wisely they were applied. Late that afternoon, while sunlight reflected across the glass headquarters, Victoria approached Graham alone. There were no cameras. No assistants. No board members. She sincerely admitted that she had failed not as a business executive but as another human being. She confessed that growing up in extreme poverty had once made her promise never to appear weak again. Over the years, determination slowly transformed into emotional distance. She became so focused on maintaining control that compassion quietly disappeared from her daily decisions. Graham listened without interruption. He understood pain because he carried his own every day. He knew that grief could harden people in ways they never intended. Instead of criticizing her, he encouraged her to become the leader she wished someone had been for her years earlier. Forgiveness arrived not because mistakes didn't matter, but because healing mattered more. Weeks later, Halcyon Dynamics announced sweeping changes. Employee assistance programs expanded. Managers received leadership training centered on respect and empathy. Parking policies now required staff to verify circumstances before towing any vehicle. Customer service guidelines emphasized listening before judging. The changes became known internally as the Mercer Principles, though Graham repeatedly insisted they belonged to everyone willing to choose compassion. The woodworking contract transformed Graham's small workshop into a thriving business. Rather than chasing luxury, he hired struggling veterans, single parents, and skilled workers who simply needed someone to believe in them. Every employee received flexible schedules for family responsibilities because Graham never forgot the afternoons he wished someone had shown understanding to him. Nora continued visiting the headquarters during school holidays. Employees adored her cheerful personality. She filled once empty office walls with colorful drawings reminding everyone that kindness was never a distraction from success but the foundation of it. Victoria changed as well. She remained disciplined and ambitious, but people noticed something different. She learned employees' names. She visited workshops instead of only boardrooms. She listened before making decisions. She asked questions instead of making assumptions. Years later, business magazines praised Halcyon Dynamics once again, but this time they celebrated something greater than financial growth. They admired a workplace where dignity mattered as much as profit, where leadership included humility, and where one ordinary father had quietly transformed an entire corporate culture without demanding anything in return. Graham often looked at his repaired pickup with gratitude. It was still old. It still carried scratches earned through honest work. But every mark reminded him that true wealth was never measured by polished vehicles or expensive buildings. It was measured by integrity, compassion, and the courage to remain kind after life had given every reason to become bitter. Before we reach the end of this story, take a moment to leave a meaningful comment and tell us what touched your heart the most. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone judged you by appearances, or has someone shown you unexpected kindness that changed your life? Your words may encourage someone else who needs hope today. As Graham and Nora drove away beneath the warm afternoon sun, the old truck carried something far more valuable than furniture or tools. It carried proof that one act of patience can soften the hardest heart, that true leadership begins with humility, and that the strongest people are often those who quietly choose forgiveness instead of revenge. The board had begged one humble father to speak because they discovered that integrity commands a respect no title can buy. The greatest victories are rarely won through power alone. They are earned through compassion that refuses to disappear, even when the world seems determined to forget it. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Thank you for being part of our family and our community, where every story reminds us that kindness will always leave a legacy greater than success alone.